Well, hello there. Welcome to Wednesday Night Live with Pastor Adam. I am Adam Burton, pastor at Central Baptist Church in Maysville, Kentucky. And tonight we are going to be able to hear a conversation that I get to have with my father, Greg Burton, who is a longtime pastor at the Colonial Heights Baptist Church down in Kingsport, Tennessee. Every little while we get on, and basically it's just kind of you guys kind of get to listen in with the conversations that we have all of the time about church, about current events, and about life in general. So tonight we talked about how our churches are doing during COVID, and he's going to share with about several people in his conversation that have actually contracted the virus. We're going to talk about kind of the church in general in the country and dealing with governmental mandates and how churches should function through that. And we're going to close up with looking at the Gospel of John. I am starting a sermon series this Sunday going through John, and I'm really looking forward to it, and worked out perfectly because my dad just finished preaching through John a couple of weeks ago, so you get to hear some insight with that. So the conversation is always good. Sit back and enjoy. Let us know what you think about it. Give me some feedback, any types of questions or anything that maybe you'd like to hear us discuss. Let me know in the comments or in the chat, and I'd be happy to, we'll see where we can go with it. God bless and enjoy. Well, welcome everybody that is watching online. It is Wednesday night. Actually, it's Wednesday day, but it'll be night by the time that you are watching this. But back by popular demand is I am here with my father, Greg Burton, who is coming from his from home there in Kingsport, Tennessee. Welcome, Dad.
Hey, it's good to be with you. Always good.
Isn't that right? Yes. So how is life down in Vol country?
You know, it's going well. I think there's a little excitement that football may be able to come back. We're looking at starting school, maybe on a week delay, but getting back face to face. Our church is meeting. Our youth and children's ministries meet outside with appropriate spacing.
Okay.
So we're still meeting. It's still the church. We're still doing ministry. We're still giving to missions, and we're just trying to be the church and get through this.
Yeah. I mean, same here. I mean, it's we've kind of gone probably not as open as you are in Tennessee. In fact, this past week, our governor, we kind of are restricting things because we've seen a huge increase in COVID cases. And so now we kind of have the mandate that masks are required. In fact, yesterday, day before, he's kind of shut the bars down, reduced restaurant capacity down to I think 25%, trying to stay ahead of this thing. In fact, I am coming on the end of a kind of a self-quarantine myself because we returned from Florida a couple of weeks ago, and it was a risk going down there, but it was a much needed time that we needed to just to get away from everything here, as much as we love it. But it was good to, and we stayed safe, as much as we could. We basically went from the condo down to the beach, stayed away from everybody, and so thankfully, last week I ended up getting tested, which was not a pleasant experience at all. They talk about a cotton swab. I've never seen a cotton swab. It had like teeth on the end of it to scrape your. No, I think I'm finally at the point where I don't feel that my nose has been violated, but. Thankfully, I came back negative, and none of us are showing any symptoms. But out of precaution, I stayed home from church this past Sunday. Just went ahead and recorded it and played that there, and I should be ready to go this Sunday. But yeah, I mean, we're talking school. I think they're looking to push it back a little bit, but here we're hoping, the 20-something of August, and hopefully. We'll be able to get back in person, but I don't know. Everything's just kind of in the air right now. But kind of same with you, we're still meeting. Um, and people, it's up and down. This past Sunday, I think, because the governor himself had suggested, just it wasn't even a request really, that churches may kind of close for the next couple of weeks to give the virus some time to see some positivity on that. And a lot of our people took it, listened to that, and participated online. But we still had several people. We had a visitor this past Sunday, and so life is continuing to go on. But could you imagine? I mean, we're 6 months now. Still, we were talking like 6 weeks, and now we're half a year, and probably another good half of the year, to some degree or another, dealing with this thing.
Well, we have, I found on social media, I'll see people, their cynicism coming out, and they'll say, does anybody actually know a real human being that ever had this? And of course that's just cynicism, conspiracy theory kind of thing. Well, we have 5 positives within our church membership, our active church membership. Now, 3 of them hadn't been since the COVID issue's been arising. They've stayed away. One is in the hospital. He's on a ventilator, and he's struggling with. It's improving slightly. And then another person, they're in self-isolation, self-quarantine, and very mild symptoms. Seems like they're going to be fine. But, I say all that, none of that is spread at church. Fortunately, people with masks or were careful or didn't come with symptoms.
Good.
If one person came and didn't wear a mask and did whatever, it could be 20, 30 people. In a minute. Yeah. We're aware we've got a task force put together of medical professionals, I think 6, that are going to, kind of evaluate what we're doing, any changes we need to make, just kind of give us more expertise at a local level. But you got to live, you still have to live. And, so we're not shutting our lives down. We're just being very, very careful.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of where we're at right now, is just we're at the point where you can't. I mean, we got it with the economy. I mean, we still got to be able to like I said, live, but at the same time we got to be safe. And that's what here I don't have any issue with wearing a mask. In fact, it's not pleasant at all, but if that's the sacrifice we need to make to be able to save lives, then I'm more than willing to do that. It's funny you mentioned the conspiracy. I think I've said on here before, one of my doctors is up in New Jersey. We do the telemed through Zoom, and I had an appointment with him the other day, and he was somehow we got to talking about the COVID, and he said that, in fact, in New Jersey, where there used to be a ton of cases going on, but right now it's things are doing a lot better. He said of his patients, he has only 3 that are in the hospital right now, and which is a lot better than what it has been. But he said for those people that don't think it's really, he said, I've seen the icebox trucks come that are filled with bodies of people that have died from it, and he said it's real. And he said, up there in New Jersey, things are open. They did shut down pretty much completely, but they've opened back up. But everybody's wearing a mask. He said there's no, there's nobody making people. It's just because they've seen the catastrophic effects of it, and so it's real. But as you said, at the same time, we can't just live as hermits so we have to try to strike that balance.
Well, and the thing with the mask is for some people, it's a sign of weakness,
Yeah.
that we're weak-willed and we capitulate to politicians and, leaders, and that this is all about the liberal Democrats trying to destroy President Trump and we need to quit cooperating. You hear it all. And
Yeah.
I got to be honest, I get a little weary when every single thing is a conspiracy. But I'm aware that it's definitely being used on both sides politically, no doubt about it. But this is what I'm going to share with my people this Sunday. So I guess they're getting a sneak preview, those who tune in. I went to the dollar store, which is around the corner from our house. They have a fresh market grocery. So I went in and nobody was wearing a mask that worked there. And the last time I was there, they did wear it. So I went in, all the customers, most of them were wearing masks. I had mine on. When I got ready to check out, the girl had finally put hers on. So I just wanted to reinforce that behavior. So I told her, I said, thank you for wearing a mask. I said, that keeps me and others safer. She said, oh, absolutely. She said, we try to wear them. And so I thought, this is my chance for a gospel witness. So I looked at her and I said, now, you know that my mask doesn't really protect me. I mean, just the smallest chance does it protect me at all. Air flows around the mask, gets in my lungs. So the mask doesn't prevent that. She said, right. Then I looked her right in the eye. She was a young girl, maybe 25, 30. Looked her right in the eye. And I said, I wore this mask in here for you. And I just looked her right in the eye, smiled. And she looked at me and she said, you did? I said, sure. I said, you have customers in and out, in and out, in and out. You don't need this. I said, you've got a life. And I said, so I put this on because I wanted to protect you. Yeah. I said, and besides, God really loves you. And she about came to tears.
Wow.
A powerful moment to take what is annoying to some people and frustrating, whatever, and turn it around to a message of hope and love in the name of Jesus. So I'm going to encourage folks to do that more, when you go to a restaurant and you sit down at the table, leave your mask on until your server has taken your order. And then say that to them. And then before you eat, of course, take it off. So we'll see. We'll see where this goes.
Yeah, I like that. In fact, this past Sunday, I finished my series looking at the Imago Dei, the image of God, and it's called On Mission. And I said that we reflect God as we are His representatives through evangelism and missions. And so I, challenged our people during this time is, yes, we are limited somewhat in mobility, but we're not limited in accessibility, and to try to find ways to bridge to have gospel conversations, because right now people are, they're thinking more than about things outside of themselves, existential thinking, and even with spiritual matters. And so, that I think that's a perfect one of those bridges of talking, just wearing a mask, how we can show that, yes, this is a caring act for them. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, and it's real. I don't know if you saw the article this last week. There was a church in Alabama where they were having a revival, multi-night. I don't know how many nights it was, but I think 40, 60 people, pretty much. I think most of the church that was there, including the pastor, got COVID. And he said, I don't think there was anything, they weren't doing anything, to make a political statement at all. But he said, we tried to follow the precautions as best we could. But he goes on to say is that, the mask was optional. We just, people wanted to wear them. They could. If they didn't, they didn't. And then he said, if people were comfortable shaking hands, and they could, and kind of what I took from it is most people didn't wear the masks, and they didn't really do anything different. And sadly, they're, it's gonna take a long time to recover from that.
Well, we have to do what we have to do. Our priority is to keep people safe. And then our priority is also to keep people comfortable I've had some folks tell me and said, if people don't wear a mask to church, I'm
Mm,
probably not going to be coming, because if
true.
they're singing and they're talking out loud and they're not wearing it and they're water vapors, then I feel exposed to it, and I'm not comfortable with that. So, do you infringe on people's freedoms? Do you create dissension by saying you must do this, or do you say, well, all the masked people have to sit in the balcony, or
Yeah.
do you really want to go there? Because when you do that, you alienate and create strife and division. Actually, my sermon this Sunday is about strife and division. So
Yeah, well,
get
well, I'm grateful. I mean, at my church, I mean, from the very beginning, we talked about meeting again. The deacon said, "Look, I think if we do it, we need to everybody needs to do it, or it's not, it's going to be difficult to work." And so, I mean, I know it's not ideal, and I know there's people that don't like it. There may be some that haven't come because of not because of having to wear it, but we haven't had any dissension at all. I mean, it's been they've really just been great as far as coming together and I mean, and doing it. But I'm thankful that they like. What? If we're going to do it, let's well, everybody needs to do it. And look, different churches have different views on that, and I think that's one of the things I've learned probably more than any during this pandemic is that what's best for my church, it may not be best for yours. And each of us have to make the decision as best that we can. One, to, I mean, first and foremost, in obedience to God's word, but then to our own conscience. And then again, to what is, the benefit for our church, and then throw in trying to obey the legal matters as well. And sadly, I mean, you're right. There's a lot of politics and stuff involved with that. Of course, we have the Supreme Court is kept that injunction in Nevada. So I don't know. It's a whole nother can of worms right there.
Well, and I've tried to make it clear that our priority is safety, and that if we should feel the need to have to kind of shut down church for a week or two or a month, it will never be because the government required us, demanded of us. It will be because we choose to be a partner for safety, and we care about our community, we care about our membership. So we're not puppets of the government. We are
Absolutely.
puppets of the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, other places have different, I mean, we've, I don't know if a lot of people that are watching here, but if you pay attention to the church world, a Grace Community Church out in Los Angeles, it's a mega church, 8,000 member church, has released a statement, and I'm asking other people to sign on to it, basically saying that that at least the governor in California, they've overstepped their their authority, and that is Christ as the head authority, that that they are going to disobey the governor's mandates and continue to meet in person. And so they did that this past Sunday, and I watched a little bit of their service, and it was full, and I didn't see anybody wearing a mask. But you know what? I mean, I think many of the statements that John MacArthur, their pastor, and their other pastors that drafted that, you know what? I think I could affirm that. I think, that I'm not in California, so I don't know, but I know, they're probably more restrictive than we are here. But there's a few things that I found a little, that I took a little issue with. And I mean, just to be frank, I mean, our governor suggested here that, we take off, but based on one, everybody in our church is wearing a mask. We can all socially distance. We don't hang out. We're meeting once a week for 45 minutes to an hour. I didn't feel that for our people that, you know what, that they would be any more safe staying at home than you know how we've been doing church. And so we continue to meet unless things change. I'm planning on meeting again, you know, this week, but I don't know. It was just kind of the tone with which within the letter, it was saying that that it's clear in Scripture that you know in those cases to where they are to basically to rebel against the government, and I don't see it quite as clearly as they do. And again, look, I mean, I guess technically we're not doing everything the governor is suggesting here, but to imply that every single church has to have that view in order to be faithful to the Bible, I don't know. I'm not comfortable going there.
Well, and we see that here. I mean, we have everything from some of our higher church denominations. They've not met yet. Yeah. I mean, they've been out how many weeks it is, a bunch, and they're still not going back for some until this Sunday or even till Labor Day. And, you know, I know that's got to be a little disconcerting to some of their membership when they see other churches meeting, but they're not. Yeah. And then you've got some churches that do the drive-in church, you know, in the parking lot, like a, you know, movie theater, so to speak. And then you've got some that gone back to full schedule, like, well, we're going to the full schedule. And that we're choosing to not do full schedule because we don't want to expose our people to any more risk than we need to. And so what we do in worship is, you know, very careful, you know, very carefully driven. And we still do children and youth ministry, but we do that outdoors and we keep distance when we do it. So, you know, we try to do everything we can, but, you know, for somebody to say, we've got to figure it out theologically, and then you need to sign on with us. You need to actually literally sign a document. You know, that just doesn't sound like the spiritual philosophy that I hold to. So, you know, I wish them well. I mean, John MacArthur obviously has written lots of books, commentaries, popular speaker, booming. So, you know, no judgment on him. That's their not business. That's just not where we are.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, much in there, I would agree with that. Look, I'm not. We need to take religious liberty very. We need to hold that very tightly because it can easily be taken away. And but there was another response. Jonathan Lehman, who's a pastor up in, I think he's in Virginia now, but the group that he's with, he kind of wrote a response to it, basically, and kind of said the same thing. He said, you know what, if I was in I'd probably be doing the same thing that he's doing, but he said, and then the kind of the line in that his response that really stuck with me is, for Grace Community Church, being a faithful Christian means meeting despite the governor's orders. And he said, but for another church in another place, being a faithful Christian may mean that they worship in a different way in order to keep their people safe. And I don't I like the nuance of, because it is a and that's sadly where we've you know it's you got to be this or this, and look, we're in a messy time right now, and there's a lot of that, but and what I've learned is that language matters and tone matters, and what especially on social media now, because it's impersonal, but is that how you say something can really affect how somebody else would receive that.
I agree. And, it's not just what you say, but how you say it. It's true in marriage. It's true,
yeah.
It's true as a public figure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, well, I don't think it's don't think it's the last discussion that's going to be had on the church and COVID-19. But I think it's a I don't know. It's hard to really plan for the future. We are truly learning what it means to hold the things of this world loosely right now, and just kind of that's what I'm doing. Just kind of going with the flow, and also realizing now we've gone from a 100-yard dash to a 5K, a 10K. We're at the half mile point or a half marathon now, but I have a feeling we may even get into an ultra marathon before this thing is over. But it's a true test of perseverance, and I think it's not always a bad thing to be tested.
No. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I finished a sermon series on the Gospel of John.
Ah, yes.
Thoroughly enjoyed it, from chapter 1 to chapter 20. I just thoroughly enjoyed it going all the way through. It was a blessing. I learned so much, things that, I'd heard and I'd maybe taught or preached in the past, but in the context of the flow of the book and the life of Christ, just so inspiring. I loved it. And I understand that you're going to be starting that soon.
Well, I believe you're right. So yes, this Sunday we are kicking off the series in John. It's one of those I don't plan super far in advance. I don't know. We'll be in John for a while, but I would agree, and I haven't gone into the depth that you have in order to preach through it. But it's one of my my favorite books, and I think it's one that really I think it's a book that is for everybody. I don't know what would you say. Well, kind of explain a little bit to our watchers, listeners, because John is a gospel. It's one of the 4 gospels, but it's different than the other gospels. What's the difference there?
Well, the other 3 gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, all come from similar sources. That's not a bad thing.
Right.
Probably Mark was the one that recorded his gospel first, and the others drew from it. And it's not like they're copycats or plagiarists. What that means is every one of them wanted to be careful to get an accurate and a good report of all the things that occurred in the ministry of Jesus. So they shared information, they shared accounts, they did their research. It's what any of us would do. The Holy Spirit guided them in that, and it's a beautiful thing. So those 3 are called synoptic, meaning syn, the same, optic, see. They see things the same. And so that's why those 3 gospels, same events, same stories, same parables, they're almost always, pretty unified in their approach. John has a little bit different take, has a few different episodes that they didn't include, and that's fine because you couldn't begin to include everything Jesus did.
I think he said that.
Yeah, he did say it. It's very personal. He refers to himself as the disciple whom Jesus loved. Well, of course, he loved them all, but John had a special rapport with Jesus. He really loved him, and it showed, and it was very tender. So he just brings, I would almost call it maybe a little more emotional. Maybe that's not the right word. Maybe a little more tender view of Jesus, definitely personal. And whereas Matthew, probably not so personal. And Luke, medical doctor, has more miracles and healing than any of the other gospels. So you can see how the Lord uses the personalities of the writers with the Holy Spirit to present this. But John just brings a lot of love. In fact, the second half of John is chock full of love. Everything is just about love. So I think it's a good time for you to be preaching through the Gospel of John.
Yeah, absolutely. I read this the other day, kind of just did some preliminary stuff that somebody said they didn't have an attribution to it, but they said that the Gospel, or John's Gospel, is deep enough for an elephant to swim and shallow enough for a child not to drown.
I like that. I like it.
And yeah, I
it.
mean, it is.
It's a good gospel to. It really plays well to breaking it up into chapters or a little passage here, and it's almost self-contained. You can tell the story of Nicodemus, and you don't have to tell the whole story.
Yeah.
Nicodemus works, or woman at the well. I mean, all of those, they work really well. It's very preachable.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, and that's it is, and oftentimes, I mean, many people will, with a new believer, they will point them, hey, read through John, and because I think that's, and again, each of the gospel authors really have a purpose and a people that they're writing to,
Mm-hmm.
and within John's, it is, so to show that Jesus is divine. He is the Son of God who came to take away the sins of the world.
Yep.
And that's where we get probably the most famous verse in all of the Bible, John 3:16. And but I mean, you're right. It is Shatul. I mean, the woman at the well, and then you do get the the miracle aspect. But John spends most of his book leading up to the Jesus' death and resurrection. And
Yes.
I mean, I would say that's kind of the focal point of that, which is obviously the focal point of our faith. It's, yes, the miracles and his ministry on earth was important. His example was great, but without the resurrection, we are most to be pitied, as Paul says.
True.
Yeah. Well, I love in John, how he really the prologue, those first 18 verses, which is where I'm going to be. It's so poetic, and obviously it's no coincidence that it starts the same way that the beginning of the Bible, right? In the beginning was the Word, and yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into that. So kind of let's looking at it holistically, the entire book. What would you say, the main thing that you would want somebody to get out of the book of John?
I think the main thing for me to come out of the book of John is that the coming of Christ as the Son of God is the greatest expression of love in history.
Yeah.
Because the theme, one of the themes of John is, behold the Lamb. This is the Son of God, takes away the sins of the world. But then you find in the last half of the book, it is consumed with presenting love. That this coming of the Son is God's way to say to you, He loves you. And maybe the greatest point, one of the great points of that is in chapter 3.
Yeah.
When Jesus, who has no home of his own, arranges for and meets with Nicodemus, who didn't want to lose his job as seminary president or whatever teaching position he had, meets privately, and this brilliant theological mind that probably trains all the priests and rabbis, finally in exasperation says, Lord, how can somebody be born again? Can you enter your mom's womb a second time and be born? And if Jesus didn't roll his eyes, then he wasn't human. I would have had to have rolled my eyes and think,
are you serious?
Seriously? And he backed up and he explained it simply to him again, threw in some Old Testament background with Moses and the serpents. And he gets to know what's powerful about that is when he tells Nicodemus, he said, as Moses lifted up the serpent of the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up.
Yep.
And he understands about Moses lifting serpents that if you've been injected with poison from these asps, you can be saved by looking upward. You can be saved. Your family, your wife, your children, everybody can be saved that looks at that asp. And so that's logged away, even though he's a little unsettled with the details as he leaves that night. Yeah. And 2.5, 3 years later, whatever, Nicodemus, because he's an officer in the Jewish faith and the Sanhedrin. Because he's a significant leader, he would have been there as a witness for this execution.
Yep.
And so as Jesus is crucified, he's laid on the ground, the nails are driven into his hands to the cross. Then they take the cross and they lift it up high until it lines with the hole, and with the thud, it drops in. And Nicodemus looks, and he sees the Son of Man lifted up.
That's right. Yeah.
It registers. It registers. He finally gets it. And so he and Joseph of Arimathea are so touched, so redeemed, that they actually go to the governor and formally petition him for the body of Christ, which exposes them both to being followers of Christ. Nicodemus got it. John 3 works. He got it.
Yep.
And that is cool. I mean, and then you to chapter 4, where the woman at the well, out of his way. Why? Because the love of heaven says the Father is looking for true worshipers who will worship him in spirit and truth. And that's why I'm here, because he's seeking you. You know, you go on to chapter 8, where there's a woman who was caught in the very act of adultery. She was a pawn in this chess game. Sacrifice her just to expose Jesus in some way. And Jesus had mercy and pity on her, because heaven had love and sent the Messiah, and the resurrection of Lazarus. Heaven had love and sent the Messiah, the Son of God, and on it goes. It's just a masterpiece of beauty.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it
I'm
is
excited. I'm sort of preaching this.
Yeah, you've done preaching it for me. Yeah, that's good. Hold on, for some reason my headphones decided to. That's how I don't get feedback here. Let me reconnect here. All right.
But you even if I know your church is going to enjoy it. Don't misunderstand me. What I'm saying is, not just the preaching. You are going to love the journey through John. Oh, you're going to love it.
Yeah, I am looking forward to it for sure. All right. Good. Can you hear me now?
Hear you fine.
Oh, that's good. I messed it up. Yeah, I am looking forward. I mean, and it's chock full of those door. I mean, to say it preaches but I mean, it is such a great picture of Christ, and throughout it is the sacrifice of showing love, and even as simple as being gentle with Nicodemus, or going out of the way purposely to cross cultural barriers with which there was ethnic tension there with the woman at the well, and then obviously, culminating with his death on the cross. And I think it's just, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a good time.
Your people will enjoy it because it flows. And too often preachers are picking their sermon on Sunday evening for the next Sunday, but this is not bouncing around. It flows, and it's really nice to lead into the next, and I think it'll help our folks be more biblically literate in preaching through a book like this.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I'd like to just step back a little bit to the COVID thing and say something.
No,
I want to give my church credit. They have been so supportive. And, I've known of some churches that dissension, division has occurred, that it became political, almost like political party, political, and people had a chip on their shoulder. And I don't have that, or if I have it, it's hidden from me. Our people, they know we're diverse. They care about each other. They listen to good counsel. They know what we're about. They're not giving a lot of grief over, well, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? They may inquire, just carefully and respectfully,
Sure.
but they know that we're all doing the best we can. These are really unusual times. I mean, we've never in my lifetime been through anything quite as odd as this. So, I really like it when the church says we're still going to be the church. Well,
Right.
we may be hampered a bit, but when things are dark, a little bit of light, it just shines all the brighter.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, same here. I couldn't, I keep telling people, I said, I would never wish that we would ever enter into another pandemic like this, but I am grateful that God has placed me here at this point, at this time, to be able to serve. And my people have been so encouraging and gracious, and yeah, it's couldn't ask for anything more, for sure. Well, time is getting away from me. I got to get this put together and get it ready to go live here in just a little while. But I have enjoyed the conversation, Father, as always, and we'll do it again.
And if I can maybe make a quote from the Gospel of John.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going. You can preach the whole thing.
That this is my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased.
Oh, buddy.
So it's a pleasure, son.
Yeah.
And
Looking for some doves.
Look forward to seeing you soon.
Absolutely. Love you, Daddy. God bless.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight on Live with Pastor Adam. I hope you enjoyed my dad and I talking, and look forward to doing that again soon. If you have anything that you would like to hear us talk about, maybe it's something in the Bible, or just life in general, or dealing with Christianity and the culture, we'd be more than happy to pick that up and to discuss it. Let you know what's going on online at Central Baptist this week. Tomorrow night, Thursday at 8 o'clock Central or Eastern Time, is my weekly Bible study through the Word. In fact, tomorrow night we are going to be looking at Jesus and how we are to pray. And Jesus gives us a great model to pray. So we're going to look at the Lord's Prayer and how that can ignite our prayer life. So if you find your prayer life's a little stale, maybe you just don't feel like doing it, tune in tomorrow night at 8 o'clock on Facebook, on YouTube, and we'll be on Church Online at Central Baptist. And then Sunday, if you are local in Maysville, we would love to see you in person at 437 Central Avenue for worship. If not, worship with us online. We'll be right online at 1045 on all of the same channels. Well, I hope you have a great evening, and God bless.